Madam, come to the microphone.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Today is happy first day of spring. Today, first. Allow me to begin our conference with the opening speech by Yelena Ovcharenko.
Yes, but it's not a speech. It's just a couple words, right? It's a couple words about that. I know that everybody who is sitting here knows that the ECA region, Europe and Central Asia, is so diverse, extremely diverse region. And everybody who travels there and work with people from those countries know that awareness, cultural awareness is a very important part of your work. And to know where is good to start the conversation with some cup of tea, and maybe sometimes just it's not appropriate for different countries, and how to go through the different cultural situations and maybe challenges. So we decided to listen from you. We decided that you are people who can share your own knowledge, and maybe your stories is the best source of information, is the best source of knowing how to behave and what to do in those different countries. But also we think that it's good to maybe to celebrate something. So we celebrate Russian Maslenitsa. Of course, a little bit too late because it ended last week. But okay, we have today. It's Maslenitsa, so it is Russian Mardi Gras. And also tomorrow will be Navruz. Navruz is a new year in Central Asian countries. So we decided, why not to celebrate spring? So Maslenitsa and Navruz. Okay, and at the time of this, our small gathering, our small conference, we will listen to these different stories of your colleagues. And we welcome you to share your own stories and to discuss everything you hear here. Okay, so let's start.
Thank you, speaker. Every year for the last 5 years, students of our program have participated in this presentation and have greatly contributed to preparation and success of conferences. On this note, I would like to hand it over to our first presenter, who will introduce you to the wonderful world of Maslenitsa. Please welcome Lada Strelkova, Country Program Coordinator for the Russian Federation.
Thanks, Ella. Not to raise expectations, it's not going to be a big presentation. I've been asked to explain what Maslenitsa is. And I have to say that for myself, it was a very educational experience to actually learn about this. I personally, I'm a Bulgarian. I'm also a Christian Orthodox. But like many people of my generation, I don't know enough about that. So this was an excellent opportunity to learn. Maslenitsa is an interesting holiday. Just like many holidays, it has both pagan and Christian origin. Generally, like most holidays, just like all holidays, it is a joyful experience. It's the time when people celebrate. And for the case of Maslenitsa, the celebration is a celebration of end of winter and beginning of spring. On the pagan side, Maslenitsa is essentially considered like a sun festival. The sun is shining longer, the winter, the weather is getting warmer, and the sun is like the pancakes that signify the Maslenitsa week. On the Christian side, Maslenitsa marks the last day before the onset of Great Lent. And Great Lent, about which I read quite a lot these days and learned about a lot, is a very important element of Orthodox Christian religion. The Great Lent precedes Easter, and it's a lengthy period of fasting. By the time of Maslenitsa, Lent is already in place, so people are already, Orthodox Christians are already abstaining from meat. Once Lent itself begins, it is much stricter fasting, which excludes meat, fish, dairy products, and eggs. Some people even exclude vegetable oil. In addition, the Lent excludes parties, secular music, dancing, and any distractions from spiritual life. So Maslenitsa represents the last chance for people to have a good celebration with lots of activities and worldly delights and a good cause for celebration, which lasts the whole week as per the tradition. What combines both the pagan and the Christian sides of the ancestry of the Maslenitsa is blini. This is the round pancake, and because of that common element, it's also called the pancake week. The pancakes are round and golden as the sun, and they're made of rich foods that are still allowed at that time, such as butter, eggs, and milk. And I do have a recipe for pancakes now. If anybody wants to ask for it, I can send it to you. As I mentioned, it's a whole week of celebration, and every day of that week has a different significance, and different activities are involved. Important activities, for instance, are on Tuesday, different games are held in the open air. On Wednesdays, that's the time when sons-in-law visit mothers-in-law and eat pancakes. Pancakes eating is throughout the whole week, so whatever's happening, it is accompanied by eating pancakes. On Thursday, if there is snow, people go sled riding. And then on Sunday is a very important day, the conclusion of the week. On Sunday, people prepare this straw effigy that symbolizes winter and take it all the way to a fireplace that has been built and burned it. So that's the symbol of the winter going away and spring coming back. On Sunday also is the Sunday Forgiveness Day. That is the day when people, Orthodox Christian, ask forgiveness of each other for anything bad they might have done or thought of doing to each other. And they, especially younger people towards older people, go and ask for forgiveness. So that's a description of Maslenitsa of that week. And our teachers have been so kind to bring to us examples of the actual blini, of the actual dish that is the food representation of this wonderful holiday. It's a wonderful Russian holiday.
Thank you, Lada. And now, thank you, Lada. And now, Maslenitsa music. 3 minutes.
Вы, наверное, как и я, вино с икрою хотите. Масляна, Масленица, мы зимой прощаемся, на горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Масляна, Масленица, мы зимой прощаемся, на горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Дядя Тюси был в гостях, ел с кониной холодец, 3 недели с половиной хохотал. как жеребец. Масляна, масленица, масляна неделя. Мы блинов объелись, и ходим еле-еле. Масляна, масленица, масляна неделя. Мы блинов объелись, и ходим еле-еле.
Как на масляной неделе санки с горочки летели, Милка с горки катится, сама как каракатица. Масляна, масленица, весело резвились, водка, пиво и вино, в общем отравились.
Масляна, масленица, весело резвились, водка, пиво и вино блинами отравились.
Thank you. Our next presenter is Maribel Cheris, Senior Country Program Assistant. Please welcome Maribel.
Spasiba. Thank you. I would like to give you a glimpse of Russia and a little bit of the culture. And first of all, let me tell you that Russia became the Russian Federation in December 25, 1991, after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. A few country facts is that the country has approximately 6,600,000 square miles, and which puts the country as the largest in the world. It ranks as the 9th populous country in the world with 143 million people, according to data of 2012. And the country has also the world's largest reserve of mineral and energy resources. And needless to say, that is one of the largest producers of oil. You might remember Yuri Gagarin, who was a cosmonaut, and he was the first human in space. And this put Russia as the world's first human space, having the first human space flight in the whole world. Moreover, Russia is a large middle-income country. It has become a growing donor of trust funds in the Europe and Central Asia region with $100 million. And as member of the G8, it has become a global leader in the region for economic development. And currently, the World Bank has a country partnership strategy, for fiscal year 12 and 16 that consists of a budget of $5 billion. And now I would like to refer to a few highlights and give you a little bit of a glimpse of the Russian culture and myth. And I would like to start with samovars. As you may have seen outside, you have a sample of 4 different samovars. These are metal vessels that are used to warm water for tea and social gatherings. So it consists of 2 parts, as you may have observed: a metal container for boiling water, and also a fire pine under with a tube that warms up the water. It's widely used in households, restaurants, and hotels in Russia. And besides the practical use or significance of it, samovar also has a emotional significance. And this is because it provides the right ambience for social gatherings or friendly conversations, which give samovars a unifying symbol. So, is it a little bit chilly here? No, right? But I feel cold because now I'm going to talk about another myth of the Russians, which is winter and the frost. So, let me transport you to the coldest country in the whole world. Okay, this is one of the characteristics that Russia has, but not because of that Russia is all snow or cold weather. Is as in any other place, by climate regions or zones. And in the larger part of the territory, winter can last between 4 to 5 months. In the central Siberia, 7 months. And in the transpolar area, 10 months. So you can imagine that this has helped Russians to adapt to different climates, in terms of clothing to wear, in terms of roads to build, in terms of other aspects that need to be considered under winter conditions or severe weather conditions. The other aspect is that in the region of Yakutia, which is located in the northern hemisphere, the temperature can reach, can you guess? Take a wild guess. No? Minus 97.6 Fahrenheit. I was so surprised. And as Lara said, in this process, I learned so many things that I thought, oh, maybe 50 degrees or no, minus 50. But no, it's close to 100 Fahrenheit. So, and it's in the coldest, in Yakutia, the coldest part of the country. Incredible, right? So, and well, now a better way to warm up after going through the winter in Russia. So maybe we can have a little bit of vodka, right? So, is another ingredient in the Russian culture. Vodka has a particular way to be consumed and a protocol. It has to be served cool and at temperature 8 or to 10 degrees Celsius. Pardon me, I don't know in Fahrenheit at this point. It should not be diluted in water, and neither should ice be tossed into it. So, and the drink should be drunk, straight and in shots, not hastily. Between shots, you have to have a little appetizers that are called zakuski, and could be salted cucumbers or salted tomatoes or pickles, and this helps the drinker to decrease the concentration of alcohol in the blood. So as you see, if you drink and you take the zakuski, you will not get drunk. So that's the trick. If you follow the protocol, you will not get drunk. So, and another thing that is very important for the Russians is when you finish the bottle, you don't put it on the table. Okay, you put it on the floor or you just toss it away. Because if you put it on the table, that is that is considered as bad luck. So, and also another thing that vodka is consumed in a group. Is also accompanying friendly conversations, and it's for a toast. So you have to toast when you drink vodka. And if somebody toasts with you, you have to also raise your glass and make a toast. So, and if somebody invites you for a vodka shot, you have to return the favor and invite the person another shot. So this is what I can offer you as a little bit of a glimpse of the Russian culture and the myth. So, thank you.
Thank you, Maribel. Our next famous presenter, Veselin Kunchev, about Russian character and culture. You have more. You have something. Okay. No problem.
You're on PowerPoint, yes?
Oh, yes, the other one. Yeah, this one, if we can. Yeah.
Okay, and you go forward by pressing the down button.
So after the excellent presentation so far, I will, I'm a little bit ashamed because maybe by a little bit of a coincidence, it happens that a couple of the topics that Maribel already highlighted, I have them as well. And actually, I do believe this is a confirmation of the fact that these are indeed typical things. So two people searching simultaneously found them and want to talk about them. So the the first thing that comes to my mind about picking, which is a typical artifact in Russia, is the matryoshka. One thing that few people know, that it was the first set was crafted in 1890 and after that this wonderful tradition has continued, and these are, I believe, a typical representation of the matryoshka dolls. But what's more interesting is that in the modern times the idea has spread, and nowadays some political leaders are also becoming part of this great tradition. Yes. Also, I was asked to, when preparing the presentation, to keep basically the most important elements, but also to be mindful of the sensitive nature of the topics. So hopefully I can counterbalance showing the matryoshka in Russia with the matryoshka in US. This is the Obama family, also has been has been how to say, iconized in the form of matryoshka dolls. So the next popular topic. Thanks so much, Al. The next popular topic that I would like to bring to your attention, of course, is the great culture of Russian tea drinking. The tea is coming from, at least that's what we believe, the tradition comes from Mongolia, and it was a present that was given by the Mongolian ruler to the Tsar Mikhail I, and after that the tea was imported from China with caravans. So what is interesting, what I found very interesting, at even that time, the state monopoly was trying to enforce its way, so only state-approved merchants were allowed to import tea. By 1796, Russia was importing more than 3 million pounds using camel caravans from China. And according to a study done in 2005, 82% of Russians consume tea on a daily basis, which I find amazing. And I do believe there was another study that found tea actually to be only second in popularity to another drink that I should not mention, but many of you already have guessed. So what some of you may find interesting, that in the 19th century it was the tradition was to drink the tea with a cube of sugar held between the teeth. So that was a tradition, and I think in Russian they used to say chai s sakharam, meaning that the two were inseparate, and probably the reason was exactly the procedure of drinking the tea that was established in the 19th century. Now it already, Maribel already talked about this great device called for brewing tea called samovar, which has become a symbol of hospitality and comfort. So there are many different shapes of this wonderful device. And what I found interesting, that a pottery samovar-like device was found during archaeological excavation, and it was estimated to be almost 3,600 years old. The first modern samovar doll was expected to be produced around 1717. And around the 19th century, it was already a common feature of the Russian tea culture. this is a completely, this samovar has a completely different shape. I think it was called a Turkish samovar. Probably I can correct me about this. But what I found amazing is that the samovars have evolved a lot during over time, but are still probably at least used to be probably until 1970s, 1980s, part of the Russian tea drinking culture. So the next wonderful topic that I'd like to talk is the Russian women, which is a wonderful topic by itself. So we start with a quote by Pierre Bakunin, who said, if we, the Russians, could boast about something, it's only the character of the Russian women. Nowhere else, and it could not be, a female character cleaner, simpler, intimate, majestic, and beautiful. A quote that I wholeheartedly agree. Among the qualities that are most often attributed, it's the strength, physical strength, but also the strength of characters. As the quote says, the Russian woman can stop a running horse. It is also the psychological endurance and moral qualities. So, as many in the West believe, they call Russian superwoman a embodiment of beauty and strength, and that is a typical representation. And I believe it's one of the Bond's movies, if I'm not mistaken. So, Russian men, as we know, are the toughest men in the world. So some of them like fishing and hunting. So, like this gentleman here. So, what else can I say? Of course, there are people who prefer ballet, like Václav Nijinsky. So there is always a balance between strength and power. Cold weather, no problem. Of course, for the Russians, it's just an excellent opportunity to take a bath. And I have been in Novosibirsk. Unfortunately, it was the summer, but I was told that the river is covered with 4 meters of ice, which I definitely believe, and I hope to have the opportunity to see it in person someday. So, thank you very much. It was just a couple of things that I wanted to share with you guys, and I hope we'll have more opportunities to taste the excellent food and celebrate the great holiday of Maslenitsa. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So interesting. Our next presenter will talk about the Eastern European culture, which she had experienced firsthand while living there. Please welcome Susie Yonyeldits, Senior Operation Officer.
Thank you, Ola. Yes, actually, I've had the pleasure of living directly in Kiev, and today I will be talking about what is termed the Slavic states of the former Soviet Union, Moldova, Belarus, and Ukraine. Actually, I was able to have some perspective on these countries because I did spend a summer in the former Soviet Union in Ukraine in 1989 and spent some time in the 90s in the early transition period visiting Belarus and returned there for 3 years in 2006. And what I can say is, although these 3 countries were classified together as the Slavic states of the former Soviet Union, in actuality, they have emerged as very distinct countries with very distinct identities in the last 2 decades. And despite being bunched together in this way, I would say much more is distinct about them than is common at this point. First, I'll turn to Moldova, which more and more, I think, is emerging with a very distinct identity and breaking away in many ways from the Slavic past. First of all, I think it's a misnomer in some ways to classify Moldova as a Slavic state because in actuality it's always been a very ethnically diverse country, although very small. Moldovans are the majority of the population and they are not Slavs. But they also have quite a bit of Ukrainians, Bulgarians, Gagauz Turks. The Jewish population has been significant, and what you'll find is you'll meet many individuals that might share 3 or 4 of those ethnicities in their ancestry. So despite the small size, Moldova is a very distinct state. Because of its geographic location on the far western part of the former Soviet Union, and its proximity culturally and its historical heritage shared with Romania, I think you can see already that it might be difficult to find any Russian speakers there in another generation. You know, in the Moldova country office, people are speaking to each other in Moldovan, in Romanian, excuse me. And in the government, if you don't actually speak Romanian, you will not be able to secure an official position there. And we heard one of the taxi drivers who doesn't speak Romanian, and he was lamenting how it becomes increasingly difficult to function without the ability to speak Romanian. So this has happened in about 20 years, and I think given the dynamism of the context between Europe, which is drawing Moldova closer and closer to the West, and I think Moldova looks more and more towards the West in terms of its future, I think it's going to be very difficult to see much of the Slavic past as a predominant cultural force in the country. Next, I'm going to move to Belarus, which is actually one of my favorite countries. I worked there in the early transition period in the 1990s, and I returned there in 2006. And despite what is promoted about Belarus in the Western press, I think that if you were to visit the country, you would be quite surprised to see that it is quite a pleasant country to visit. It has always been, even in the former Soviet Union, the most disciplined and orderly of the countries of the former Soviet Union, and in so being probably not very characteristically Slavic. I mean, I think you would sort of characterize it closer to sort of the Germanic cultural experiences, because, or the cultural influences, because it is quite a disciplined country and people. But more surprisingly is that it's always been the country with the highest per capita income, and it continues to be so. Unlike many of the other countries of the former Soviet Union, it has actually begun to evidence that the mortality of the people, of the population, is actually reversing the downward trend, which is actually a very positive sign that maybe the prosperity of the country and the hope of the population is having is beginning to be evidenced in these kinds of indicators. Also, I think people would be surprised to know that it is one of the most income equal countries, ranking close to Sweden, Japan, and other such countries in terms of its income equality. Some would maybe skeptically point to the dictatorship for this reason, but I think that our own analysis, one of the country economic memorandums produced for Belarus, attributed part of the prosperity not only to the sort of control and command nature of the economy, but also the fact that much less is stolen in Belarus than in other countries. And therefore, one can say that the society is benefiting to some extent from this control and command approach. And so this, I think, gives everyone something to think about. When you look at all the indicators, even something like energy efficiency, the country and the government takes a very proactive stance in managing problems, and they've already gone from being one of the least energy efficient countries at the fall of the Soviet Union to equaling at this point Canada's energy efficiency, and they aim in another decade to approach that of many of the European countries. So, and lastly, I would just say that, any team that has had the opportunity to work on this country, they see the difference in terms of the ease of actually doing some projects because of the disciplined and orderly nature of how things work there. So that's Belarus in a nutshell. And lastly, the biggest and probably the most complex of all the countries is Ukraine. Ukraine actually was probably the most shocking for me to return to after this long period of almost 17 years that I hadn't been there, because Ukraine was known as one of the powerhouses of the former Soviet Union. But what I saw when I got there was a country that was really suffering in many respects, and this was clearly shown and evidenced in socioeconomic indicators. While the country and the size of the economy is quite strong, what you see at the level of society is large segments of the population left behind and extreme wealth in the hands of the oligarchs. Like Russia, Ukraine is a bit of a kleptocracy. So you've got these financial industrial interest groups who are benefiting from all the prosperity of integrating closer with the West and with Europe, but at the same time, many parts of the population can't afford life in the capital city anymore, and the infrastructure in the country is really dilapidated, and many diseases that you don't see in Europe anymore are actually quite flagrant in Ukraine now, such as TB, HIV/AIDS, which will be one of the top 3 killers of young women and men in the next decade. So these are signs that actually Ukraine, despite being a significant former powerhouse of the former Soviet Union, has quite a bit of a growing development agenda in front of it. In terms of the sort of myth of it being in terms of its identity as a Slavic state, I think what's clear now is that it is playing off its position between West and East and will continue to do so. Any sort of preconception that the current government, which was viewed to be pro-Russian, would be clearly falling into the camp of Russia in terms of economic decisions, etc. I think that is clearly not the case. There are energy interests that would prefer to be closer to Russia, but on the other hand, there are plenty of other industrial and financial interests that look to the West in order to see its prosperity and its future growth. So Ukraine has always been quite good at playing off and balancing interests between its various periods of empires coming through its lands, and I think it will continue to do so. Ukraine is incredibly diverse as well. In the West, you have a very pro-Ukrainian, in terms of language, cultural region, and in the East, you still have predominantly Russian-speaking, more pro-Russian region there. And I think it's clear that Ukraine will maintain its integrity as a single country. It sees itself as a country that will not, want to dissolute despite the tensions within it. And I imagine that it will continue to play off and balance the interests on both sides of its borders. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. So interesting. Thank you very much. Our next presenter, Stefan Dahan, water sector specialist, cultural and political aspects of relation, maybe for 2 or 3 minutes. Helena, I don't know.
Well, actually, I was going to talk about Belarus, and I think that Susie already said it much better than I would, so I'm not going to add much, only concur at 100% with what she said. It's always a great surprise stepping in Belarus, and one of the reasons is that there is very little understanding. Actually, there is no myth about Belarus because people do not know much, and there is this very frequent confusion because of the name Belarus, and also because of the current political ties, that Belarus is just an emanation of Russia and but in all aspects very similar. But as Susie said, it is a very European country, and one small example I will give of my current working experience that illustrates that is the lunch experience. There is some vodka available on the table. There is also some very good wine, and definitely there is no hospitality terrorism, as you can experience it in other places of the region. Everyone takes what he wants, and that's perfectly fine. I think this is a very characteristic aspect that differentiates Belarus from its neighbors. And another one I will again stress is driving across borders between Russia, Ukraine, Belarus. It seems like entering the European Union. At some point, it's really difficult to know whether we are in a former Soviet Union country or in Germany, considering the level of order, cleanliness of the all sites, including the small villages. So it's definitely a big surprise, very positive one for everyone who works in this country, and I know very few. I don't know actually anyone who does not miss Belarus when he stops working there. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. Thank you. Our next presenter is Alison Cave. She will talk about Russia and Central Asian countries. Please welcome.
Thank you. Actually, I'm going to talk mainly about Central Asia. I had the opportunity to go to Central Asia while it was still part of the Soviet Union, and then again to work on it from the World Bank after it was many years after it had the countries had separated from the Soviet Union. Some of the myths that I'm going to talk about, and I do apologize to, or the stereotypes that I'm going to talk about, and I do apologize to anybody who's from Central Asia, because these are stereotypes that originate from the U.S., basically U.S. impressions of Central Asia and their informed, or rather not informed, opinions. So please don't take offense at them. But I found that these myths, these stereotypes were actually very much false when I went before, when it was part of the Soviet Union, and even after. One of the things that we often think about is that all of the stands are the same. So they lump in all of the Central Asian countries with Afghanistan and Pakistan. Some of the other things that we think of is that the Central Asian countries are very backwards, that they are highly religious and very much Islamic, and therefore repressive of women, full of terrorists, very unstable. The politics is that, basically most of us think that after leaving the Soviet Union, that most of the countries are very happy to be independent of the Soviet Union. Some of the things that I found, that the stands were very, very different from each other. I think when you look at the geography of the region, you find sort of a more arid land towards the west, and it's greener and characterized by steppes in the east. And I think that these physical characteristics really do a lot to determine the characteristics of the people. There has always been a sort of dichotomy between the settled and the nomadic. And so you find that most of the countries in the west, which would be Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan, tend to have cities. They tend to be more urban cultures, whereas the countries to the west, to the east rather, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, tend not to have many or long traditions of cities and a long tradition of a built environment, but they tend to be much more of a nomadic culture. And you find that this still influences the characteristics today. Of course, there has been tremendous mixing of influences and cultures in Central Asia. Central Asia was the northern part of the Silk Route, and so you had traders going from the Middle East. You had Alexander the Great invading. You had influences from China, influences from India, the Turks, the Mongols, and the Persians. So you find a lot of different religions, a lot of different approaches to things, and different languages as well. Most of the countries speak a Turkic language, but Tajikistan, for example, speaks a language based on Farsi. One thing that surprised me when I went, well, these countries were still part of the Soviet Union, was I thought that they would be basically Sovietized, that everyone would be speaking Russian, that everyone would be wearing, I don't know, communist outfits. And I was actually really surprised to see that there was a very strong nationalist culture. Even so, people wore traditional dress, they spoke their own languages, they went to mosque or to church. And for me as an American, having these stereotypes of the Soviet Union, there would be no religion, there would be no this, there would be no that. So I found that was completely a myth from America. In terms of being very religious, while there is some, I would say, there are some influences from Afghanistan and Pakistan, what you find is that people do have a fairly relaxed attitude towards Islam for the 88% that are Muslim. People drink, you don't see them going to mosque every day, and you just don't get the sense that there's such an influence, an Islamic or a pan-Islamic or a fundamentalist influence there. Although there is starting to be some coming up from Afghanistan and Pakistan. But even so, today it's still not very prevalent. And the role of women, this I found very surprising because, of course, I thought, in Islamic countries that women would be very much oppressed. But what I was surprised to find is that particularly in Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan, being nomadic societies, there's a great recognition of the value of women, and there's almost an egalitarianism, and no man would make a decision without consulting the females in his household. You see that in Kyrgyzstan there were a couple of revolutions, but in the latest revolution, the leader is a woman. And that was not at all surprising to the Kyrgyz that I spoke to. They said, why wouldn't a woman be a leader? Oh, okay. Oh, yes. And the other thing is, actually, the word Kyrgyz means in Turkish 40 girls. And so even the name of the country and the name of the people derives from women. So another thing that surprised me, I think, also being an American, is when I went to the eastern countries, Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, was the similarities, what I found to be similarities with Native Americans. Of course, long ago they say that the Native Americans crossed over the land bridge between Asia and North America. And I found actually that physically people looked very, very much like Native Americans. I found a lot of physical character similarities. The role of yurts and teepees, that because they're nomadic cultures, the Kyrgyz and the Kazakhs in particular do have a tradition of having mobile houses, the yurts, which they live in. Native Americans, of course, have teepees. They did not have settled areas. They were nomadic as well, and they carried their houses with them. The role of the horse. In Kyrgyz and Kazakh culture, horses are extremely important. People derive their wealth from the horses. They're a main source of transportation. They're also a source of food. And I'm sure you've heard about the famous fermented mare's milk, kumis, which I had the opportunity of trying, and it's actually quite good. I was a little skeptical at the beginning, but it's actually quite good. And the Kyrgyz and the Kazakh believe that it's sort of a general, all-healthful substance that, you know, if you're sick from anything, if you drink kumis, you will be cured. They also eat horse meat. That I did not try, but it's considered to be a noble meat and something that's very, very important in Kyrgyz and Kazakh culture. Yes, they're very. So in terms of how the countries relate to each other and relate to their neighbors, again, as I said, I thought that, you know, being an American, that being independent from the Soviet Union would be a great thing. But I was surprised to hear a lot of people in Central Asia really regretting the Soviet Union and saying, you know, that they lost job opportunities, that there was sort of an overall structure, distribution, food, energy came from, and that it's very difficult for them as individual countries to organize that, and that the labor markets have shrunk. That, you know, you find people with PhDs driving cabs and working in restaurants, and they said that during the time of the Soviet Union, they would have had a much wider employment pool. So I found that very surprising. The countries, many of them don't get along very well either. You have a lot of rivalries between, for example, Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, and to some extent Kyrgyzstan. Part of it is because the country delineations were basically done on a napkin by the Soviets. You know, they didn't really conform to sort of a sense of country that the populations had, and so they're, in a way, they're sort of artificial boundaries. So you find ethnic Tajiks and ethnic Uzbeks in each other's countries, and this is a source of instability. Again, most of the people I talked to in Central Asia said that at least while they were under the Soviet Union, they did actually get along fairly well. And so it was sort of an imposed structure, and now they're finding it difficult in many cases to get along. Another myth or stereotype is, and this comes probably from its tradition as being a main road along the Silk Route, is that most of the countries are backwards and that they consist of traders and business people. While it's true they do consist of business people, many of the countries are also extremely, extremely modern and are developing sort of modern industries and modern economies, in particular Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has been very, very successful in attracting foreign investment, and the economy is growing. So those are basically the impressions that I have. I'd invite anyone who is Central Asian to refute some of the stereotypes. But thank you for letting me share this.
Thank you, Alison. So interesting. Now I would like to open for questions and comments for anyone who wants to share ideas and experiences that are related to our presentation. Welcome, please.
Everybody, you travel a lot, you know those countries, you have your own stories. Share, please.
I really don't have much time, but I would like to have a comment. It was an excellent presentation from Alison, but I kind of disagree with the fact that the Soviet Union structure, when I travel over there and I have to work with the government over there, I find the structure still there. In fact, it's so much there that it's almost possible to remove. They are so rooted in a way, in sort of in a very, very is not even questioned, you know. So those are my comments. Although I agree with everything you said about the countries, I find that the influence of the Soviet Union and Russia, in particular, very much so there.
No, I very much agree, and that's why I said, you know, for me it was very surprising, because I thought that once they gained independence that they would be very happy and be independent. But I fully agree that, you know, there is still sort of a longing and perhaps a real connection. So.
Thank you, Numa.
I would like to add that I had the opportunity to travel to Russia, and I visited Moscow and Yaroslav. And what I can share with you is that Russians are very much appreciative of the fact that you are interested in their culture and even further learning their language. So they welcome very much, and they appreciate very much this expression of respect and appreciation for their culture.
Thank you, Maribel. Who else?
Just a quick observation. For example, if you just travel to Moscow, you shouldn't make an impression this is what Russia is about. It's very much country within a country, and if you really want to feel Russia, you should really travel like Yaroslav or anywhere, just kind of, even St. Petersburg would be better. I mean, not better, but just a bit different, more objectivity you would get from travel to Russia.
Thank you so much.
I would rather just ask about Moldovans, because still a lot of Moldovans work not only in Europe but in Russia, and they work, and this is a part of economy for Moldovans and for Moldova. And I understand perfectly that they are much closer to Romania right now than to the Soviet Union, to Russia. But at the same time, and I heard from people from Moldova, that this is a problem, this is the question or maybe issue of identity, national identity. Because sometimes they themselves don't know who they are, or just Moldovians or Romanians or the Russians. Is a connection to different cultures. Moreover, they have the Russian enclave there. So this is, I think it's a very complex situation.
You're absolutely right, Elena. Moldova, like many countries, for example, in Central Asia, derives its very large part of its GDP from remittances. So at some point, the 33% of the national GDP was derived from remittances from Russia. So males predominantly in the construction boom, and they go for seasonal work to Russia. But at the same time, I know that when you visit Turkey, I know a lot of women who have gone to Turkey to serve as nannies or housekeepers. So I would say that, yes, from this individual level, the fact that the people are fully functional in Russian makes, and the fact that there's mobility, there is still an important connection in that respect.
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, I would like to add a little bit on Moldova and also then on the neighbors. My impression is that there has been many back and forth in the country since 1992 towards Romania, towards Russia, depending on the political messages, etc. And lately, my feeling was that for the youth in the bigger cities, Russia, which they could see through television, was much more attractive to them than Romania. It's more the urban elite. This is the fashion, the music they see on TV, whereas Romanian would be associated to the grandparents, to the countryside. So there was much more attractivity. But again, this is a back and forth, and what's surprising in Moldova compared to the neighbors is that because there is this identity issue, people seem quite opportunistic about moving to Russian or to Romanian. They can go back and forth within years. It's not a problem. In Ukraine, this language divide is really a nationalistic issue. People know where they come from, and it's really a struggle. And most surprisingly is the case of Belarus, where there is also a language split. Belarusian is actually quite different from Russian. But more and more people speak Russian because this is language of everyday life, and there is no nationalistic tension about it. There is no passion, absolutely no passion about it. So it's three completely different approaches to the same problem.
Thank you, Stefan. In conclusion, I would like to thank our presenters, friends, guests for our continued support and participation. I hope you enjoyed the sampling of traditional Maslenitsa dishes. Thank you again, and till the next time. Maybe Elena wants...
And just Olga has a small announcement. I have a very small announcement. If you would like to continue celebrating Russian culture, next weekend, Saturday and Sunday, in Hillwood Museum and Gardens, there will be a Russian festival which takes place every year in celebration of Maslenitsa. It's a bit delayed, but there will be music and dance and various activities for children. It's a family event, so consider coming. It's a beautiful museum, private museum, that features a lot of historical pieces from Imperial Russia, and it's some European influences as well, but it's definitely a very unique Russian-like, Russianish museum in United States, and we are very lucky to have it in DC. So please come if you have time, and if the weather is nice, you will not regret. It's beautiful gardens as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Olga.
Can I just say thank you to the Russian language unit for organizing this and for the delicious food.
Вы, наверное, как и я, вино с икрою хотите. Масляна, масленица, мы зимой прощаемся. На горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Масляна, масленица, мы зимой прощаемся. Вы, наверное, как и я, вино с икрою хотите. Масляна, масленица, мы зимой прощаемся. На горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Масляна, масленица, мы зимой прощаемся. На горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Дядь у тещи был в гостях, ел с кониной холодец. 3 недели с половиной хохотал, как жеребец. Масляна, масленица, масляна неделя. Мы блинов объелись, и ходим еле-еле. Масляна, масленица, масляная неделя. Мы блинов объелись, и ходим
масляной неделе санки с горочки летели, Милка с горки катится, сама как каракатица. Масленица, весело резвились, водка, пиво и вино, в общем отравились.
Масленица, весело резвились, водка, пиво и вино, блинами отравились. Оба два на лед ходили, оба два катались, оба два меня любили, оба отказались. Масленица, мы под шубой грелись, один раз поцеловались, еще захотелось. Масленица, мы под шубой грелись, один раз поцеловались, еще захотелось.
Я на масляной катался и любимую катал, тузом-юзом кверху пузом, руки-ноги поломал. Масленица, весело резвились, чудно время провели, в больнице очутились.
Масленица, весело резвились, чудно время провели, в больнице очутились. Как на масляной неделе со стола блины летели, есть и масло, и творог, заходите на пирог. Масленица, мы зимой прощаемся, на горах катаемся, блинами объедаемся. Масленица,